So we've seen a lot of numbers here this morning, and we've seen that there is a very important challenge to our sector. I don't know if any of the participants would be able to look at the. Did anybody look at the tags on the sheets and the beds in the hotel? Did you see what they were made of? What were they made of? And how much of the raw material was written on the labels? How much cotton was there? Nobody saw it. So I still always do this. Whenever I go into a store, I always look at the labels, and people say you can see what's in the composition of those products. Very often, you get very little information. So this is something that we need to promote. But here in the hotel, the sheets I saw, there was 60% polyester and 40% cotton. So how can we recover this? How can we win this race? This is the main aim and of a number of initiatives locally and globally in a number of different countries. So how can we do this in a coordinated way, in a more structured way, so that we can, in fact, recover our share, the cotton share, in the consumption of textiles? So I'd like to begin by asking a question to Kim to kick things off. Kim, you represent one of the most traditional entities in our sector and one of the most important in our sector. We know the fundamental role that ICA has. If you could just tell us a little bit about what has been done differently or anything new, as well as maintaining the high levels of control of the contracts and so on. What else has been done by ICA so that we can continue modernizing and improving the standards that we have within our market?
Thank you very much for the question. It is a very traditional association, and we are expanding outside to some degree on how we can help contribute to promoting cotton as a fiber of choice. Part of what we're doing this year is we've started a working group working on that exactly. What can the ICA do to bring and identify associations to join us in promoting cotton for good? We're currently working on that, and I'm sure that we will be reaching out to ANEA and in Brazil to join us in what we identify. But we feel that we have to reach from brands and consumers all the way to the producers. We all have to join together in communicating this story in a structured and cohesive way.
Obrigado, Kim. Muito obrigado. Eric.
Eric, thank you very much for your good presentation and all the data that you showed us. Now, there are some challenges that go far beyond the work that we have done in our industry, which is related to the regulations. We talk a lot about geopolitics. A lot of the time, there are measures that seem to be protectionist, can harm competitiveness of cotton, and which change the structure of our market. How do you see our agenda as a sector which needs to become more active and more proactive so that we can be at the front of these possible changes? And how can we participate in them so that they do not cause harm to our market?
It's actually a really good, important question, because when I think of the two biggest challenges we face, one is this long-term declining market share issue to synthetics. The second one are these potential problems coming from regulation. A number of years ago, the EU passed the EU Green Deal, and then there was this strategy on circular and renewable textiles. Within that, there have been a large number of measures which have been pushed forward through the EU. Now, one of the real concerns we've had is a lot of those measures are dependent on something we call the Product Environmental Footprint, or PEF. And unfortunately, at this point, the PEF process does seem to favor synthetic fibers. So what are we doing about it, and what can we do about it? There are 4 different groups that are working now within the EU. One, the US industry has a lobbyist there, and they're very effective, and they've been engaging. The second group is that the International Wool Trade Organization has been working something called Make the Label Count, and it's an all natural fibers approach. And we've been talking with ANEA and ABRAPA about participating on that, because the wool people are running out of money, and this effort can really benefit cotton by sort of making the case that natural fibers are better than synthetics. There are 2 other efforts. One, Cotton Incorporated actually participates in this Product Environmental Footprint Technical Secretariat, but they can't lobby, they can just provide technical expertise. And the final part is ICAC. We report to the EU government, but if they give us permission, and they've been pretty good about it, we can actually also engage the regulators. We're not lobbyists, but what we can do is we can provide technical expertise. Because as an international organization, our goal is to help all of our countries succeed. The European Union wants to have a cleaner environment. We believe that natural fibers are a way to help them achieve their goals. So there's a win-win if we can make it happen. We can help the EU achieve its environmental goals, and hopefully we can make it a more level playing field for cotton.
Bom, dá para ver que tem bastante coisa para fazer. Aziz.
So I see there's a lot to be done here. So you, working with the Associated United States and here in Brazil, how do you see the work that's being done in the United States? Despite the consumption of cotton being reducing in the United States in recent years, what work has been done so that cotton continues to be the most important consumed fiber?
Look, if you look at your cotton share in fiber consumption, over the years it's come down, as Eric mentioned, from about 40% in 2000 to about 21% today. And one of the key issues has been you cannot consume what is not available, right? The key constraint to cotton consumption, whether in the US or globally, has been the stagnation of production. So as I said, you can't consume what you can't produce. So one of the key things US is looking at is how do we increase the cotton production within the country. It's very difficult for cotton to gain acreage share, given the competition for food and feed. So you have to look at other ways of increasing the production, which is yields. So there is work that's going on at an industry level in the US to figure out how to improve the yields. I mean, US has a unique problem of weather vagaries in Texas, but notwithstanding. So that's one issue. And the second is there are 2 other key things which US is looking at. One is how do we promote sustainability and traceability throughout the value chain? And US Cotton Trust Protocol, the various initiatives that they've taken over the years, and some very ambitious goals that they've set for themselves in terms of soil conservation, carbon sequestration, fair trade, etc., is going a long way in terms of promoting cotton consumption to various retailers and brands. And finally, there is work that's being done through Cotton Incorporated and Cotton Council International, where they are going out to the consumer and to the market in terms of promoting the virtues of cotton over other synthetic fibers, and try and promote the use of cotton. So those are the key things. I mean, to summarize, one is on the yield improvement, that is produce more cotton. Two is in terms of embracing sustainable and traceable production practices. And three is promote the cotton itself to the retailers and brands and to the consumer.
Bem, obrigado, Aziz. Varun, na sua apresentação.
Thank you, Aziz. Varun, in your presentation this morning, you mentioned about the growth of fiber consumption globally, and we saw that cotton will continue to grow, and together with all textile fibers, but we could see that it's happening in a much slower pace than the increase in compared to the synthetic fibers, especially polyester. I think numbers were 50 million for polyester going to 90 million, and the cotton growing from 6-7 million in the same period. So what's lacking in your opinion? What can we do to change this this tendency? Because this is a big concern that we have in our sector.
Yeah. So I think if you look at the complete value chain, what we have been focusing on the supply side, right? So we need to have more cotton, better competitiveness, etc., etc. So the other thing that we also need to keep in mind, what Aziz also mentioned a little on this, is that we also need to create a demand from the pull side. So one is that we push into the value chain. We also create a kind of a pull from the value chain. So the decision maker in the entire value chain are the brands and retailers. Like you mentioned that we even didn't see what was there in our bedsheet, what is the fiber. So as a normal consumer, for us, material is actually immaterial. We hardly look at the constituent of the fiber. So if the form is good, if the quality is good, so we'll buy. So if it is available, it will be bought. So the key decision makers are the retailers and brands. They have to be tapped into creating the awareness more and more about adoption. And of course, if the availability is not good, then definitely they will have to look for the other option. So it has to be a two-pronged strategy. One is that we create a better availability, help the textile value chain to develop cotton expertise, but the maximum focus, I would say it's a softer aspect of it, is that if it is available on the consumer shelf only, then it's something that you said, if it is not available, it can't be consumed. Same goes for the consumer also. They are not going to ask for 70% cotton, 60% cotton. They're going to look at the fabric feel, the form fit, design, pattern, etc. Just one very small thing. Let's say if we buy a t-shirt of, let's say, $30 or $40, what is the total constituent, what is the total cost of cotton in it? Let's say if it is a 300, 400 gram t-shirt, maybe we'll use 500 gram of cotton. That's only $1. So the price of raw material in the overall scheme of things is not very important. It's not very huge. You're only 5% or 6% is raw material, rest is all distribution, wages, whatnot. So it is important to be served as the preferenced fiber rather than saying that cotton needs to be bought. People are not looking for cotton, people are looking for solutions. For example, we mentioned that technical uses in sportswear, cotton is nowhere. If there could be a big breakthrough in the technology where sportswear gets introduced cotton gets introduced into sportswear, then it could be something else. Why 70, 30 or 60, 40 bed sheet? Why should polyester be used in bed sheets? It's just next to the skin. So this kind of awareness can only come from the retailers and brands. So I think it is a dual strategy of creating a pull into the supply chain along with the push that you're already working on it.
Obrigado, Van. Okay, Alexandre.
So, Alexandre, a question for you. Talk to us a little bit, because you have traveled the world. You have maybe spent more time away from Brazil than in Brazil. So tell us, you've obviously been doing a lot of work through the Cotton Brazil project to visit a number of different consuming countries and importing countries to bring us closer, to bring more transparency and credibility and have greater contact with our clients. In the same way that we've had the work of the buyers mission, where we bring them here to Brazil. We'll have the next mission about a month from now, which has been very successful. A lot of people like to come here to Brazil to get to see what's happening. So I'd like you to talk to us a little bit about your experiences and what you have seen and your perception and what this work has brought to us in terms of results. Good morning, everybody. So firstly, I'd like to say that we have seen a revolution in recent years in terms of promoting Brazilian cotton. In the beginning, and I was talking to Sergio Marco yesterday, where we would put a folder under our arms and have meetings with 20 or 30 mill owners. It was very important for us to start to show Brazilian cotton to the main factories and mills on the other side of the world. And when we started to work on the Cotton Brazil project, I would say there's a revolution, positively thinking, because we managed to bring together the cotton growers together with ANEA, the shippers, with ABIT and other associations have been together with us on this project. But when we got everybody together, when we got more links of the chain involved, this helped us to promote and to strengthen our promotion. We had the support from Apex. This was very important. It's a project that was fought for by the association. Our President Milton Garbujo at the time, Júlio Busato, did a lot of work with Apex in order to sign these agreements so that we could strengthen the promotion of cotton. So summing up this revolution, I would say that we have managed to bring lots of efforts together and to show our product to more and more people. As Varun said, we have to make more people aware, and we are trying to promote beyond the mill owners. We're going to the brands and the retailers and the consumers. This is a lot of work that we have to do, and we will do it. In terms of our experiences, yesterday they asked me if I was all right, if I was feeling well. I'm okay, because I'm okay when I know what time zone I'm in, when I can sleep well, because when I have a little bit of time to stay in the same place. But it's very important that we do this promotional work and to see the realities of our clients in the other countries and feedback that we get from them. We were recently in Egypt, which is a new market, and we were able to get access to this market, and they were very interested. In just 1 year, or less than a year, they started to import from Brazil, and they were very satisfied with the product because it's a product that has the quality that they want and the price which they liked. So these two things were combining together. So they had a limited number of suppliers, and they've started to substitute the imports from Greece and some other countries in Africa and start to use Brazilian cotton. And in Egypt, it's considered to be one of the best fibers because they have there a niche product, a fiber which is an extra long fiber, the Egyptian cotton, and they have to protect this production of their own. So they can't plant other types of cotton which could contaminate it with pests. So our agreement with Egypt is that we will fumigate the product and it is to go into Egypt. They can't import from Texas or from Arizona because they have a pest called Lairus, which could also cause damage to the Egyptian cotton and their own crop. So it was an excellent opportunity to bring this to them. So we got that feedback. In Turkey, we were there recently as well with Miguel. It was also very good to see that there were less complaints about our products. We've improved the quality a lot. So summing up, we've improved in the recent years in the quality, and we've been coming back and talking to our growers, and we tell them, look, you have to improve this, this, and this. And we are improving. The quality of the HVI results improved a lot. People have had almost zero complaints in terms of the quality. There's more transparency, the ABRAPA system, the official certification system. All of this is important to bring to the clients and get feedback, and also to show this information. We have managed to show that what we produce is nothing more than what they can see. We can see everything from satellite images. So being present there and showing them that we are responsible, that we will maintain our level of production, this is important. It's important to do this work and be able to take all of this information about Brazilian cotton to these main buying countries. And the last question was about the buyer's mission. It's impressive. They love coming here, but we love going to the country. But when you bring the mill owners to come here and see how we grow cotton in Mato Grosso in Bahia, Eric, I think, visited here at the beginning of the harvest. He just saw one field being harvested, but he could see that the responsibility that we have with the use of biologicals, and the concern that we have, the care that we're taking, make sure that our product is sustainable and efficient. So this is very gratifying. So when the mill owners come here, it changes everything. They become the representatives of Brazilian cotton, and something new that we have, Miguel, we'll be doing this also for the big brands, in the international brands. So we'll be bringing the brands here to be able to show them the next link in the chain, that what we are producing is sustainable and efficient. And when you see a cotton field of a giant farm that we went to, where we drove for like 30 kilometers within the same farm, we could see that it was basically one field of cotton for 30 kilometers, all in the same, with the same standard of quality, and including the fact that we grow food in the first crop in the same area. So this is impressive, and we are competitive in terms of production. It was also mentioned that we have a lack of demand because of lack of product, but they will also want price on top of this. We'll always be competing with synthetic fibers. But the big challenge for us, if I may, Henrique, is for us to produce cotton which is more and more sufficient at a low price. We have to lower our costs in order, and this will show how efficient we are. There's no point in saying we're the best in the world, the biggest in the world, the biggest exporter in the world, if we are not efficient and if we don't manage to reduce our cost. And by bringing all of these things together, all these institutions, and near the whole, all of the links in the chain, then we will need the support of our suppliers, the seed suppliers, machinery suppliers. We have to all come together to make sure that our cotton is efficient and maintain our level of production. So for this, we have to be attentive to the fact that we have to reduce costs. So we have to bring all the aspects of the chain together so that we can have healthy cotton for a long time and be one of the best suppliers in the world. So, Fernando, a question now related to the increase in trade through platforms, online trading. What impact could that have for our sector? We know that this trade has increased a lot year after year, not just only in Brazil, but in a number of countries. We see this in the media information about the big retailers who complain about this type of trade, and others saying that we will continue to grow and investing. What can this mean in terms of, is it a complication or is it an opportunity for our sector? Recently, a big electronic trade company tried to open its capital in the United States. It seems that it wasn't very successful yet. But another important company in electronic trade said it will be offering a product, so we won't need to go through the process of storage and be able to live more quickly. So this is a reality. This is happening. So what kind of challenges and opportunities can this bring for our cotton markets? Thank you, Heikki. Good morning to everybody. Thank you to Miguel for this invitation to participate in one more edition of the ANEA conference. So before going into the question, I'd like to very quickly make a couple of comments about the two presentations that we had in the morning, which were excellent and that were very relevant to the presentation we had yesterday. So we are aligned. Another characteristic that we have in this room is the production chain, which is very large, it's well consolidated, and that Brazil has managed which has managed to preserve this. Varun's presentation showed the growth in Asia, where Brazil is still a big power. And for Alexandre not to have so many problems with the time zones, he can sell more here in Brazil instead of trying to promote cotton abroad. And you can get immediate feedback from his own domestic industry. So he needs to strengthen our industry here to have more investments, not just for the local domestic market, but also to start exporting more to international markets. I'd like to congratulate all of you for the records that you've had in reaching this record of exports, and to say that we are an important partner in this. We consume 700,000 tons of cotton, which is 100% Brazilian. So you heard about the mixtures being 25 to 40%. So this is interesting marketing aspect. How can you run a mill using 100% Brazilian cotton? So, Heikki, this topic that you mentioned is related to the presentations, and it is a change in paradigm, and which is quite disruptive, which is a word that people are using a lot nowadays. Because you don't need to have any trade agreements with the country. China will send stuff here directly. You've been 20 years trying to do a free trade agreement with Europe, and without any kind of talks, the Chinese products are coming into Brazil through the digital platforms. Obviously, if they pay the taxes that we have to pay here, then that's okay. Then it's a market dispute. But what we have seen more recently is some imbalance in this competition. And this is being dealt with in the United States, in Europe. The sustainability agenda has to talk to the platforms. We don't know how these products are made, what components they are made of. So all of the regulatory agenda that you have to put products in Brazil goes through a number of regulatory agencies. And the textile market is being dominated or leaded by Europe. So in terms of the opportunity and risks, well, the risks we're already seeing. The Brazilian market last year, we estimate that 25% of the apparel market was affected by imported products, whether it's through conventional imports or whether it's through platforms. So how can we also use these platforms to take more Brazilian products from in small packages to the rest of the world? This is the main point of the question. How can we attack the world markets so that we can be more proactive and less defensive? And this is an important role for Apex. We are making agreements with some platforms in order to encourage Brazilians to participate in this revolution that's taking place. We have some new business models that also involve the platforms and second-hand products and so on. So the consumers are experiencing new realities. And the money spent by families on clothing, as Varun showed, has fallen a lot in terms of the products we produce. Other products, consumer products, are being spent on by the Brazilian consumers. If Brazil grows, and will be growing more than 2% this year, but the apparel will drop. So I think the challenge is there for Brazil and the rest of the world. It's not well defined yet, but in the end, the consumers will always opt for what is more comfortable, which is cheaper, which fits his pocket, and it's up to us to improve our competitiveness, to use the tools in the same way. And clearly, we have to seek a fair playing field. You can't pay the price that we paid and then offer free trade for somebody who's producing something in China and get it sent over here without paying any tax. This would be stupid, and anybody that defends this do not know what they're talking about, in my view. So it's impacting. It will continue to impact not just these changes, but others. We have to play this game and try to get a level playing field. At the same time, we have to use the same tools to reach the rest of the world in a more emphatic way. We can see that this is a topic that's been discussed in the United States. We spent 2 weeks there celebrating 100 years of AXA, and they discussed the imports, these kind of imports, and the products, and the challenges that we have in front of us. So, Miguel, we saw that when Brazil went beyond 2.4 million tons of exports, which was the record at that time, another important statistic is that when Brazil exported more than 300,000 tons in 2 consecutive months, so 600,000 tons. This is a big challenge. The market said that we wouldn't be able to ship more than 200,000 tons per month. This would be the maximum capacity, and Brazil managed to do this. The sector organized itself, and with planning, we managed to ship more than 350,000 tons in a single month. This was equaled recently, and it's important because the production is growing. We will be exporting more cotton, and the world wants to know if we have this capacity and stability to continue shipping large volumes. Remembering that exports is concentrated in the second half of the year. 70% of the shipments take place between August and December, and then 30% in the first half of the year. But this was the case previously. Now it's much more evenly balanced. We basically ship basically the same amount throughout the year, and so this number has balanced out. So this is important as well, because in all the missions that we do overseas, there's always a question: how can I count on Brazil to supply cotton in the first half of the year? You are great big exporters in the second semester, but you don't have the same volumes in the first half of the year. This has now changed. So from here on, what's your view in terms of ANEA and an exporter in relation to the infrastructure and its capacity to continue growing, exporting these 300,000 tons per month? If we're talking about a harvest of over 3 million tons, Brazil will continue growing and will reach a new record this year. Next few days we will have the final number of that, and we will have a new record. So from here on, what can we expect in terms of infrastructure and capacity that Brazil have to continue and to consolidate itself as the largest exporter in the world? Thank you for the question, Henrique. Firstly, we hope that this problem actually gets bigger. We like having this challenge. Brazil historically, we always seem to doubt our own capacity to reach targets and to increase numbers and markers and so on. And in practice, we have shown that we can improve after the year. In case of the exports, this was the case. Nobody thought we could export more than 200,000 tons per month. Now we're doing this in a fairly regular way. The average in the first semester was 250,000 tons in these months. In December, we had 350,000 tons were exported. So one way or another, with some delays, we do get there in the end. There's a lot to be done. We have to improve the efficiency. I think the sector knows this. We have here representatives of ports and terminals. We had a presentation yesterday about this. There's a lot of investment being made, which is important in the terminals to improve efficiency, and this is being done. We also depend on the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of the phytosanitary certifications, and also on the customs department, where we do the customs process. We work together with the ministries to increase the number of SEDEX terminals and to improve the efficiency of the phytosanitary certification and so on. So this is a continuous work. We've been doing this for some time now, and we know that we'll continue to do this because the problem will continue to increase. It won't get smaller. It's also important to mention, in terms of numbers that have been mentioned, at the moment, Brazil and the United States are the largest producers and largest exporters. We went ahead of them a little bit, and then that will change. We would always be more or less in the same amount in the next few years, and eventually I believe we will overtake them. But United States ships the United States ships through 5 different ports, and we have a concentration of 95% through one port, which is the port of Santos. So this is why it's important that we develop alternatives. This was mentioned yesterday. We have Salvador starting up. We have possibilities in Rio and other possibilities that will be explored and looked into in the future in the Northeast and Suape, etc. These alternatives that I think in the medium term they will be developed. There will be cotton for everybody to export it through a number of channels. The railroad is going to be important. The work that Abrapa has done was very important to help with this process of improving the efficiency. We hope that Anápolis, which is the new rail terminal, will be operating and helping to increase the percentages transported by rail. So the whole logistic area is doing its work. We all depend on each other, but for sure this is a problem that will remain, and we hope that we continue to solve this problem and increase the amount shipped month after month. Thank you, Miguel. So I've got some questions here from the participants here and online. So I'd like to pass some of the questions on to them, and I'll be directing them to some of you here on the stage. Before I begin, does anybody here in the audience have a question? Roma Fast from Unicotton. It's not exactly a question, but this is an excellent panel discussion, debate, and when we see the complexity of the business, what occurred to me here, listen to all of the speakers, is that we live where there is, in an environment where there is stable cotton consumption. Brazilian cotton has achieved a good share compared to its competitors. And our biggest buyer, not just from Brazil, but from the whole world, is also our biggest enemy, because he produces the most polyester, is the biggest exporter of textiles. So there's some kind of the brands are kind of letting that past. So if we look specifically at this, I think that Brazil has done some excellent work so far by gaining market share. But now we will be talking about getting into a fight, because when we start gaining and winning a share from the Chinese over what that country does best, or what has greater competitiveness, especially in an economic and political environment that we have today, where you have these territorial disputes happening and who will be the next leader of the world. And if it is China, then we'll be dancing to a different tune. So just an observation there and a comment, because I think everybody has put all the information and presented all the different aspects of information. So I just wanted to add this into this package. Thank you, Raymond. Any comments from anybody on the stage after what Raymond said? We have a number of sectorial initiatives, regional, global, but I get a feeling that there's something that needs to be done to change the game. Cotton has a very beautiful story to tell. And of course, we see that the union that we have in the sector brings a lot of benefits to the whole chain, to all of the participants. But there's still something more that we need to do. How can we get greater impact? How can we make our business more popular and more well-known? I think there's an important agenda here. We recently signed a memorandum of understanding in the United States, which was maybe an historical event. Imagine countries signing a document in favor of recovering the consumption of cotton in the world, regardless of whether it's produced in Brazil, United States, or Australia. So today we are the biggest exporter, tomorrow we could be the second, and so on. Things change, and everybody realizes they have to recover the percentage that we've lost, or to get more of the percentage of the growth that we're expecting in the market. How can we do this, and how can we make this a reality so that in 2030, looking at Varun's slide, so that we don't arrive in the same place where we thought we were going to increase 6 billion, which was already not very much, and not actually increase at all. So these initiatives all of the entities have done in all the countries, whether individually or united, so that we can gain and win this race. We talk a lot about winning the race. This has a very positive effect, but it's time for us to take this up a level. We have to do something different, and the union of everybody, of all these entities and initiatives that have been done around the world, it's time for us now to do something else, something more. So I think that was an important point that you raised, Raymond, so that we can, 1 or 2 or 3 years from now, say that we have achieved results. Just one comment, please, Enrique. Yeah, it was a very important point that Raymond mentioned. And I think China is off the charts. When we look at the United States, and you've been living there, 20, 30 years ago, and the Chinese 20, 30 years later copied all of this. They started doing design and innovation, and they copied the technology. So we're not going to win. I'm not going to beat the Chinese fighting in the same ring if we're not prepared for it. They are our competitors, as are Bangladesh and Vietnam. So the axis has moved to Asia. So how is the West going to position itself in this new equation? This is a big challenge. We have the new shoring and other types of shoring, trade agreements. How are we going to achieve greater accessibilities, such as the North American? As the president, we'll have the president of the association there with us to deal with this. Such as you signed an MOU, we have an MOU with them to talk about their industrial strategy to deal with this new world that we're facing. And Asia and China, they know this very well, and China has 5,000 years of history. We've got 500 years. We have to learn quickly. Raymond, I like 2 things about what you said. The first is that China is our biggest customer. They imported more than 1 million tons in the last 6 months. So you can see how important that is, and it's increased a lot in this year. As a strategy, both in Cotton Brazil and in Abrapa, to promote cotton in a number of different countries. We never have a main country or single client country. So we're always promoting incessantly. As I said, even in Egypt we went to, which we just opened up, where the market just opened up to us, we'll be going to India, which is an important country. So we're always seeking a variety of markets. So we always do the same level of promotion in all of the countries. So it's important that we don't focus on a single client. And this is like a chess game. If we don't go to one country, the other one country will go there, and other countries, other producing countries like United States or Australia will go there, and they will be supplying the local industry there. So it's always a kind of chess game where the pieces are always moving. The second point that you mentioned, which is important, is China as a large producer of synthetic fibers. So I don't look at just China in that respect, but also synthetics themselves. And as was mentioned about the agreement signed in the United States to unite countries in favor of promoting cotton, we have to reach the point where we don't have we don't have to look at the composition of the sheets in the hotel, but just where people will say, we just have to say, use cotton. We have to get consumers to use it because it's more natural, it's biodegradable, it's much safer for the future generations. Use cotton. It doesn't matter if it's from Brazil, the US, from Africa, or from Australia, or from China or Uzbekistan, but use cotton. So this is it's important for the growing countries to unite to promote the use of cotton. So this is a work which will be very important, and along the lines that you said, as the largest supplier of synthetics, I don't worry so much about that, but how the synthetics themselves, and from a number of places, are competing with us. So we have to compete with a number of countries, and we have to show that cotton is more sustainable. I'd now like to go to a few questions from the people online. I don't know where they are, so it might be quite late for them, so we have to take this opportunity. One of the questions we got here, I will pass on to Eric to answer.
Sustainability with lasting products when during production it becomes apparent that a circular chain is near impossible to achieve. How do you combine sustainability with lasting products when during production it becomes apparent that circular chain is near impossible to achieve? Yeah.
I think I understand the question, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think in some ways Brazil has actually made a lot of progress on that, because in Brazil, I think the key to sort of making a sustainability claim is to have a strong traceability system. And during my visit here, Abrapa showed me their system, your system. And I think, by setting up a strong system, you can make those sustainability claims. And honestly, when we start talking about things like the European regulations, the fact that Brazil has proactively gone and set up an increasingly strong traceability system should probably help protect Brazil interests when the regulations come into effect. But there is a challenge, and it's not so much here, but in particular in Africa, where you have lots of smallholder farmers. And if you have a farmer that has a hectare and another farmer has a hectare, how do you set up those traceability systems? There are attempts. For instance, there's Cotton Made in Africa. I know Better Cotton is also doing efforts. But it is something, I think we have an advantage because digital technology is really making it easier. Now the question is carrying it through the supply chain, but I think if we have that basic strong start and the data, then I think it can carry through. But it's always a challenge, especially when we look at different farming systems. Some have an easier time at it than others do. I hope I understood the question.
Yeah, but I think it was a very good answer. You want to? Yes. Okay. How do you combine sustainability with lasting products when during production it becomes apparent that a circular chain is near impossible to achieve? Yeah.
We don't think it's impossible to achieve. We think Brazil's already achieving it, so anyway.
Tem muitas perguntas também relacionadas a como fazer.
We have a lot of questions also in relation to doing something which is constructive to recover the consumption of cotton. This is something we talked about a lot. We have a question here for Alexandre. This is for you. I'll read it in English.
I would like to know how the Brazilian Cotton Association intends to proceed in face of the misinformation campaign, such as deforestation in production areas undertaken by newspapers and brands all over the world.
Yesterday we talked a little about this in our sectorial chamber. We have our own reality here. A lot of people know it, but only those who come to see it personally see how dedicated we are to produce cotton in a responsible way, which is sustainable. We are audited and inspected according to strict laws here in Brazil, where we follow legislation which deal with the environmental aspects, the labor aspects, and our concern is not just in terms of having environmental aspects. We also think about the people that work there and the production, work in the production of the cotton, the people who are going to consume this content, to make sure that it's produced in a way which is reducing more and more the use of pesticides and respects the rights and health of the people who live near to the production areas. So we are audited the whole year round in terms of this. So you have to be here, you have to come here to see how responsible we are in terms of the way we produce. When somebody comes and says that, and talks about our reality without actually knowing it for themselves, this means that they have some kind of interest in just appearing, creating some chaos in order to justify their existence. But we know that we need professional communication strategies to deal with this, because if you react in a negative way and just say that, look, we have our own laws, we respect our own laws, that's not a good way to do it, because you will provide further, you will elevate further this person who has the aim of just attracting attention. So we need good communication. We have to show what we have, what we're doing well, and that we've been doing this work constantly. So this is work that we need to work together on, to have collective decisions on, where we can work together to show what we do well here in Brazil. So we have some work that shows that is able to demonstrate our reality, and bring in the buyers here in the buyers mission is important to show how we respect the environment and the people that work on the farms, and the issue of deforestation. We are the country that most preserves natural areas in the world. We have more than 60% of our territory in the country is preserved with native vegetation. This includes national parks run by the government, but we have huge areas where the farmers are responsible for those natural reserves. So if it's been invaded by a neighbor who wants to deforest, it's our responsibility to protect those areas. So beyond the government, the farmers, the Brazilian farmers themselves, are responsible for the protection of these environmental reserves. This is something that we have to show to the world, that we do have a huge concern with our soil, with our trees, and with the people who work and live here and that will consume our product. There's a lot of communication work to be done. So for the person who's asking this question, I'd like to say it is a lot of communication work to show our reality to the world. Miguel, we have a question here about a project. We have a project called Women in Fiber to value Brazilian cotton with high-end brands to create a concept of traceability, not in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of social transformation of this chain through all of the communities that are involved. What's ANEA's view to create a cotton premium brand for the world for our product? Would this be a strategy to differentiate us in the market? It could be a differentiation strategy to create a premium brand. You can improve the image of cotton as a whole. In terms of trade terms, you manage to achieve this with a relatively small volume of the cotton that is produced in Brazil, because we have a very large quantity and the top quality cotton would be smaller. Premium cotton, if we're talking about some kind of situation such as extra long fiber or something like that, it's not easy, and I know a farmer who's going to try to do that on the right hand side here. But I think it's all the achievements that we get with cotton, quality will always be important. There are three important things for the cotton market: quality, quality, and quality. So if you manage to do that, you'll reap the rewards of that. Premium brand could effectively help in that sense, and it has to be taken into consideration, even if it's just in small quantities in the beginning. But I think it's a good idea to add to the efforts that are being made. We'll put forward two more questions, and then I'll go back to interacting with the audience here. When we produce cotton with international certification, shouldn't the property be certified and not the crop itself? What's the opinion of Abrapa and ANEA about that? And what work is being done to develop this reality? We have two main certifications that we work with. We also have certification of regenerative agriculture, which we've talked about last year at the ANEA conference. There's also a third certification, but the two main ones cover 82% of Brazilian cotton are the BCI and ABR. These are certifications that assess the properties where the cotton is grown. As I mentioned, since we are audited, ABR itself has a greater number of verification items than Better Cotton, because it involves our own legislation. So in terms of how you're respecting the riverbanks, if you are respecting the lodgings and the social aspects on the farms, how we work with the health and safety of our workers, these are practices that are assessed on the farms. So our farms are audited, they are verified through these certifications that we have in Brazil.
Can the world absorb the huge crops coming in this year? When will we see consumption going back to pre-COVID level? Your perception, please.
Yeah. Look, that's a difficult one to answer, but and personally, I would be cautiously optimistic about consumption, and I'll explain why. There are a couple of things which happened across the textile value chain over the last 3 years. I mean, post-COVID, as the markets came out of COVID, there was a consumption spurt, and across the value chain, there was a huge amount of ordering. So the inventory is built up to massive levels, unprecedented, unheard of levels across the value chain at every level. Now that kind of put a burden in terms of the consumption and reordering and rebuying. But what we've seen over the last 18 months is those inventory levels have been drawn down. And we are now at around the inventory levels that are being held today at around the 5-year average of pre-COVID levels. So that's a positive sign in terms of consumption rebounding. The second thing which you see is the trend of the mill utilization rates. If you look at China, 12 months ago, Chinese mills were operating at around 55 to 60% rates. Today, they're operating almost at 90, 95% rates. And the same is the case with India, in Bangladesh, across, except for Turkey. Across the world, you've seen that the mill operation rates have gone up quite significantly. So that's another positive for the consumption. If you look at the consumer end, US retail sales have held pretty strongly, except for a couple of months in April and May where they've slid a little bit, but June numbers are rebounding. So US consumption is, retail sales is being held strong. Europe looks like coming out of a bit of a recession, and that consumption is picking up there. So all those are positive signs. But I think the real consumer sentiment will change, and you'll see a real boom in consumption and inventory restocking across the value chain once inflation eases and 2, interest rates start being cut. Today, nobody wants to hold inventories simply because it's extremely expensive to hold the inventories. But what we are seeing in the latest macroeconomic data is, I think inflation is easing in US and quite a few European countries. However, Japan, the inflation remains strong. Australia, inflation remains strong. But overall, what it looks like is we are around the corner from interest rate easing environment. So once we start seeing those interest rates being eased, you will see mills or the value chain restocking. And that's what will spur consumption. And that's what will spur retail sales further as well, because that changes the consumer sentiment. I think the key to watch is really when the interest rates change.
Thank you, Aziz. In fact, you answered the other question, so thank you very much. 2 in 1. You answered the other question. Você respondeu a outra pergunta, então deu tudo certo. Foi bom. Muito bem. Tem perguntas aqui.
So we do have some questions here in the audience. So we'll have Mehdi first. And then we'll have João. Henrique, I would like to highlight the courage of everybody working in cotton fiber in Brazil. Because in the 1990s, we were importing cotton because Brazil didn't produce enough cotton for its own domestic industry, and then we started to import. And by the end of 1999, we began the first exports. So thanks to our fiber and the courage of our growers, because then we had Abrapa, then we got ANEA, and we started setting up all the entities and all the associations. But it's the cotton growers who have to be highly commended here. So we'll have Pago, and then we'll have another question. We'll have a few more minutes before we close. Very quickly, I'd like to thank Monica, who opened up the opportunity for us to grow cotton in Itaboaquá, Salvador, and Manaus. So we are a partner in this project to open new options in different ports. And the second point is a new solution that will load the railroad cars in Rondonópolis to Maré, and then going on to Mahésia up to Itaguaraí. So this represents an evolution so that we can reach the prime area of of the Itaguaí port. Thank you. We have another question. I would like to thank and show my appreciation for all the wonderful things we have in Brazil. This project was a dream. It was developed by myself because when I started working with cotton, my feeling was that I was the only one who could see the whole process and all the transformation that we were achieving, that product, that land, that the land was providing. And my biggest dream was to embrace Marta Medeiros in the cotton field. And the biggest impact is that Marta had never been to a cotton field before. She cried when she said, wherever I am, when I'm not here, I'm happy to have been able to be here to see this transformation. And this transformation is taking place through a woman of fiber who looked through the farm gates and want to make the invisible visible. This premium cotton needs to exist. When it gets to the big brands, when it gets into people's hands, and people like Martin knew how to take this concept, the concept of transformation into a luxury product. She represents our cotton and our northeastern art because it's at the hands of women who transform the concept of being well dressed. I'd like to thank you and also make a request so that the authorities here in the chain think and rethink. Don't look just at the product, look at the house of the product. The consumer wants to know where that cotton is coming from, how it's leaving there, how it's arriving here, and to be worn on our bodies, to dress well, to sleep well, and all of the byproducts that are provided to add value. So I put myself at your disposal. I have been I have seen all the associations be started. I'm 65 years of age. I spent 45 years along the side a fantastic man who helped to make this cotton reach here, achieve this, where we are today. A man who overcame barriers and difficulties to achieve this fiber that we are talking about today. The spinners, the weavers, and the farmers. I think that we together are very important for the world, and that our home also is represented because this certification of products can protect us when the media attacks saying what we are not and what we don't do. So I ask you that you extend this certification to farms and properties, because that's where this product comes from. And the product comes from our home, from Brazil. So I think this will make us stronger, because we fulfill all of the international rules. We have a forestry code which people don't know about in other countries. We need to show this. We need to translate this. We need the embassies to protect us and protect our forestry code. So that's the feelings I wanted to report to you at 65 years of age. So Abrapa, continue. Aneia, continue. Keep seeking what is best for all of us in our home, in our Brazil. I think Donna Sanders said something very important. It's very important work that they do in Piauí, especially. I had the opportunity to visit the most famous farm. It's one of the most beautiful I've been to in Brazil. It's very beautiful work they're doing there. So in Cotton Brazil, we have done a lot of work together with the embassies. Everywhere we go, or the countries we visit, we always work together with the embassies, with the attaches. We always take them there to see how the cotton is produced. This is very important to show them how and help us defend our product. But the main message I think you mentioned is that when we talked about uniting the countries for us to promote cotton, regardless of the origin, we have to communicate this at the end of the other end of the line. There's no point in promoting and communicating things for our own egos. We have to show this to the public in general around the world, to say that cotton is produced by people, and especially it will provide a better future for the future generations. It will be a better world by working with a natural fiber which is biodegradable and sustainable. So it's important that we communicate this at the end of the line. It's important that you say that. So we have to communicate this to the general public in the world, not just for ourselves. Kim, so Brazil is an example of the work, hard work and dedication in the whole sector. We're talking about the production sector. We had a very important talk by two women of fiber here who represent all of the women here who do some spectacular work here in Brazil, and you are doing spectacular work also overseas. I think you will have to bring ICA to Brazil. Now what?
No, are you challenging me? It's not a challenge to do, but I see great possibilities in our future. I think discussions are going on for a possibility of 2026. If everything looks and falls in line in the right place, we're very excited about it. To some of the comments I've heard here today, I always want to say that Brazil is, to me, an amazing success story. My first visit here was more than 30 years ago, when I was supervising break bulk cotton from Pakistan arriving in Fortaleza. So from where we came there to today is a beautiful story of an industry coming together and working not only with the rest of the world, but within each other, supporting each other. Cotton Brazil is a fine example of what's, I think today, the impression has grown on what Brazilian can do and what the Brazilian cotton is now competitive with some of the finest cotton in the world. And it's truly a tribute to what working together can do.
Muito bem. Bom, pessoal, eu sei que tem outras perguntas aqui.
I know that we have other questions here, but everybody will be here throughout the day. We will have some other meetings and sessions here before we go outside. This panel discussion was very nice. It was very interesting to share information here. We can see there's a lot of work to be done and to achieve greater integration between the countries and all the associations. And I'm sure that we will continue working together strongly, together with a united sector, as you've mentioned, so that we can continue to win this race. That's our main job. Thank you to the speakers, to all of those who participated on the stage and contributed to this rich debate, which has been very valuable, and to all those who participated online as well in other countries and different time zones. We're on the weekend here, we know what it's like, but we can see that everybody is very much interested in what we've been discussing here. I'll now pass over to Miguel. Miguel, thank you very much once again. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you participating in this important debate. Thank you, Henrique. I knew you were going to do a great job taking care of this panel. I'd now like to call up to the stage Marco Antonio, our director at Enea. Also, I'd like to ask Sergio Di Marco to come forward. Gilson Pinesso, Haroldo Rodrigues, and Julie Buzato. All of our friends here were former presidents of Abrapa, and we want to pay a tribute to them on behalf of Alexander Schenko and all of his predecessors. So we'd like to gift you with a plaque celebrating 25 years of Abrapa. So I'm very proud to be here with all of these colleagues from Abrapa and from Enea. It says here, we recognize Abrapa for its 25 years of dedication in the cotton production chain. This is a mark which reflects our commitment to sustainability, quality and innovation, and that we maybe continue to grow and prosper together, boosting the sector and making new achievements. We hope that the next 25 years will be even greater and full of accomplishments. Translation will return after the coffee break.
Como nós dissemos ontem, parabéns, Sérgio, Haroldo, Buzato e o Gilson Pinesso fizeram um grande trabalho, além dos outros demais presidentes da Abrapa. Isso é um fruto que vocês plantaram lá atrás e toda vez a gente está cultivando essa plantinha que dá bons resultados para o Brasil. Parabéns a todos. Imagina. Assim, por favor, os palestrantes, se puderem subir só aqui para a gente fazer uma foto rapidinho. Kim, Eric, Barum, Aziz, just to make a picture.